The surprising reason why 99% of startups fail. Stunning but true, 90% of startups don't make it past the first 5 years. You might wonder why this staggering failure rate exists. Starting a business is no walk in the park. You juggle finding the perfect market fit, securing enough capital, and managing a growing team. The pressure is immense, and sometimes it feels like you are walking a tightrope. Don't lose hope. This guide digs into the often overlooked reasons why so many startups fail. And here's the best part, we provide practical solutions you can apply today. Reason 1, neglecting company culture. Company culture isn't just a buzzword, it's the DNA of your startup. It shapes how your team interacts and solves problems. Ignore it, and you risk derailing your entire operation. When you overlook culture, you'll face issues like poor communication and low morale. Even worse, talented employees might leave. Your startup can't afford such setbacks, especially in the early stages. Consider the case of a once promising tech startup that ignored company culture. In just 2 years, they went from a hot IPO to bankruptcy. Why? Employees felt undervalued and disconnected, leading to high turnover and failed projects. Reason 2, underestimating operational costs. Operational costs aren't just bills and salaries, they're the financial backbone of your startup. Misjudge them, and you'll find yourself scraping the bottom of the barrel, struggling to stay afloat. Many entrepreneurs miscalculate the costs of marketing, technology, and even basic overhead like utilities. You might think you've got it all covered with your initial capital, but unexpected expenses pop up all the time. Take the story of a health tech startup that underestimated its software licensing costs. Within a year, they were out of business. Or consider the e-commerce site that didn't factor in high customer acquisition costs. It couldn't sustain itself and eventually folded. Reason 3, inadequate market research. Understanding your market isn't a luxury, it's a must. Market research informs your product development, pricing, and marketing strategies. Without it, you're driving blind. Neglecting market research can land you in hot water. You may create a product no one wants or set prices that drive customers away. These are fatal errors for any startup. Consider the tale of a clean energy startup. They launched their product without understanding their target market's reservations about new technologies. Result? Lackluster sales and an eventual shutdown. Another example is a fashion startup that misjudged the market's preference for sustainable materials, leading to a costly unsold inventory. Reason 4, ignoring customer feedback. Listen up, your customers are your best critics. Their feedback serves as a roadmap, directing you toward what works and steering you away from pitfalls. Turn a deaf ear to customer feedback, and you risk more than just bad reviews. You may lose repeat business, and word of mouth can break, not make, your startup. Take the example of an app development startup. They rolled out features that nobody asked for, ignoring complaints. Within months, their user base dwindled. Or consider a food delivery service that ignored complaints about delays. Soon enough, they were outperformed by competitors who listened to their customers. Reason 5, focusing solely on growth metrics. Growth metrics are tempting. You see rising numbers and think you're on the fast track to success. But don't fall for the growth at all costs mantra. It's a slippery slope. Revenue and user numbers aren't everything. Metrics like customer satisfaction and employee retention offer crucial insights. Overlooking them can mean you're missing half the picture. Consider the cautionary tale of a social media startup. They prioritized user numbers but ignored abysmal user engagement rates. The result? A platform full of inactive accounts. Another example is a fintech startup that chased revenue but had poor customer service ratings. It didn't take long before they faced a consumer backlash and dwindling funds. Reason 6, lack of adaptability. In the fast-paced world of startups, adaptability is king. Markets shift and new trends emerge. If you can't pivot, you're setting yourself up for failure. Being rigid in your business approach is a recipe for disaster. Competitors will outmaneuver you, and changing customer needs will leave you in the dust. Adaptability isn't just a buzzword, it's survival. Look at the case of a travel startup that failed to adapt to the rise of mobile bookings. Stuck in their web-only model, they quickly lost market share. Another example is a retail startup that didn't adapt to consumer preference for online shopping, sticking instead to their brick-and-mortar strategy. They were forced to close shop within a year. Reason 7: Poor crisis management. Crisis management is like a fire extinguisher, you hope you'll never need it, but when you do, it's a lifesaver. Being prepared for the unexpected protects your startup from sudden collapse. Fail to manage a crisis effectively, and the fallout can be catastrophic. From tarnished reputation to lost revenue, poor crisis management can quickly lead a startup to its demise. Consider a software startup that faced a major data breach but lacked a contingency plan. Their customer base plummeted, and they folded in months. Another example is a food delivery startup hit by a scandal involving unsafe handling practices. Unable to manage the crisis, they lost consumer trust and eventually went under. Reason 8: Misaligned team goals. In a startup, everyone's on the same ship. If the crew isn't rowing in the same direction, you're not going anywhere. Aligned team goals are the compass guiding you to success. When team goals aren't in sync, cracks appear in the foundation. Conflicting priorities lead to wasted time and resources. Misalignment can send your startup into a tailspin from which recovery is tough. Consider a health tech startup where the tech team focused on fancy features, while the sales team emphasized user-friendliness. The product ended up pleasing no one. Another example is a fashion startup where designers prioritized aesthetics, but the marketing team needed cost-effective items to sell. Sales tanked, and the startup folded. Reason 9: Failure to scale. Scaling isn't just about growing, it's about growing smartly. It means increasing your operations and revenue while keeping costs low. In a startup, scaling is the bridge between surviving and thriving. Scaling too fast or too slow can both be deadly. If you scale too fast, you can't maintain quality. Scale too slow, and competitors will leave you in the dust. Either way, you're setting yourself up for failure. Take the example of a logistics startup that tried to scale too quickly. They expanded to new cities without solidifying their base, leading to operational chaos and an eventual shutdown. Another case is an e-commerce platform that scaled too slowly, allowing rivals to corner the market and squeeze them out. Reason 10: Overlooking legal aspects. Think of legal planning as the guardrails on your startup's road to success. They keep you safe and in line, helping you avoid disastrous detours that can end your journey abruptly. Missing a copyright, ignoring employment laws, or overlooking contract details can spell disaster. These legal slip-ups may not only result in fines but can also destroy your reputation and credibility. Remember the app startup that didn't properly secure user data? They faced crippling lawsuits that shut them down. Or consider the retail startup that violated intellectual property laws. They ended up draining their funds in legal battles and had to close shop. Conclusion: from neglecting company culture to legal oversights, these issues can make or break your venture. Paying attention to these factors is just as vital as nailing your product or service. Here are some action steps to guide you. Make company culture a top priority. Don't skimp on market research before you launch. Create ways to collect and analyze customer feedback. Look at various metrics, not just growth. Build crisis management into your business plan from day one. Being an entrepreneur isn't just about having a groundbreaking idea. It's about being balanced, informed, and prepared for the challenges that lie ahead. Remember, knowing what to avoid is just as important as knowing what to do.